Hey, hello. This is Miko. I'm today with the Honorable Joe Lyons. And Joe Lyons, we've known each other for over 3 years, probably about 3 years now. Joe, why don't you introduce yourself? Quick background. How do we know each other?
Thanks, Miko. Appreciate it. So, obviously, we know each other from my days at Shift Digital. I was the doc out in Chicago, um, and I've since moved on back to the dealership side where I run BDC at our Toyota store, and I do the Digad for Toyota, and I also do Digad for BMW store that we have. And we're in Elmhurst, Illinois, which is about 20 minutes west of Chicago. Um, that's with no traffic. Usually takes me about an hour. Um, so we're in a very metro area. We are pretty much surrounded by Toyota dealers everywhere. So it's pretty competitive, but that also kind of keeps us on our toes a lot. So,
Awesome. Yeah. So I really wanted to talk to you for those reasons that you know the both worlds. You're obviously we learn a lot at Shift Digital, and then you
mhm.
can go to dealer and see how you can actually implement it and what are the things that we advise work, right?
Yeah,
So we when we spoke before the video, we kind of like put together an outline of 5 pieces of advice for an average size dealer, maybe a small group, but an average size dealer, GSM, GM, or marketing person, depending on the size, right? Because not every dealership can afford to have marketing director or something like this.
right.
So if your average dealer really don't understand a lot of those things that vendors throw at you, how do we deal with those, right? So let's start with one. What you told me is basically when you work with a third party agency, marketing agency, it's important to take some of the control back, right?
Right.
Can you expand on that?
Well, I think the first thing is, what's the cadence of the meetings, meaning like, are you meeting with your SEO team once a month? That's what we do, and we go over strategy. I think just looking at, what landing pages they're building, right? What are the geos that we're targeting, right? Because no one knows your competitors, right? Pump in, pump out report better than you do, right? So um, we try to really guide our marketing companies to our goals. And that means that we have to meet once a month and we have to go over what the upcoming strategy is for that next month, right? You're always a month behind.
Mhm.
And on the paid side, um, at Toyota, we meet at the end of every month, but we're in constant contact with our SEM team. Um, and we're way more nimble, obviously, because you can be on the paid side depending on inventory. And on BMW, we meet twice a month, and we have the same philosophy. We look at inventory, what we're doing, what's working, what's not doing, what we need to really concentrate on moving, and we're consistently moving money around. So I think, once again, just making sure you have good communication between you and your vendors is really, really key. So,
Yeah, and what it sounds like from what you're saying now and what we discussed is that also scheduling
yeah,
is important, right? To make
yeah,
sure it's a cadence that whether it's once a month, twice a month, once a week, but if you want to make sure that it doesn't fall bet- in the cracks, you have to schedule it, schedule those meetings and attend them and make them productive.
yeah, yeah, and and I strongly, strongly suggest, I mean, if you're a GM, obviously you're the decision maker, but if you have someone like me, like a BMW, I make sure the GM is on there because he's the one that's going to say, okay, go ahead and do it. Or okay, add 500 more dollars to X5 campaign that we're running. So it's in terms of being nimble, you have to make those decisions almost on the spot. It can't be like, all right, we'll get back to you in a week. It's like, no, well, that defeats the purpose. And, going back to the communication part of it, that's the first thing I say to the vendors. If we bring in a new vendor, I'm like, communication has to be there to the point where, that's the number one killer, right? Other than performance. Even if you're performing so-so and your communication isn't great, then like to me, you're out. And that's what
Yeah.
I walked into with the Toyota role was we had an SEO team that had very, very poor communication. The numbers were just okay. And I just, after 2, 3 months, just got fed up trying to beg them for, what's the strategy? When can we meet? Very difficult to get a hold of. And then we just cut them, right? And
Yeah.
so, that to me is the number kind of 1B thing. Obviously, performance has to be there, but communication is so important.
Okay, great. So basically, like in your relationship with a marketing agency or an SEO, SEM is scheduled, structured communication, but also you demand that they are responsive. From your side, is that you're ready to make decisions that either you're the decision maker or the decision maker is on the call. And I actually really like it. I really agree with that.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, perfect. So, and kind of like off that, another topic that we discussed, and I felt that a lot, not with marketing agencies, but with website providers, but it feels like it's with a lot of vendors, is that sometimes there's resistance to what you ask them to do.
Yeah, we get that more on the Toyota side, I think because of the relationship that our paid search company has, right, with the OEM. Um, there's things that we've tried to do. Obviously, the big thing now is CDPs. We want to lean on our CDPs to create custom audience lists. We do that a lot with BMW, where we're running an X3 campaign, and so we will load. This is every maybe 2 weeks, we load a list and send it over to our SEM team, and then they load that list into Google, and then we can like retarget those people obviously in various ways. But um you know, we've gotten some pushback at Toyota, just candidly about that. I think they're worried about legality issues, which I don't. I mean, obviously with cookies, people would accept. I don't see the legality issue there. But so we try to do some things that are a little bit progressive, but we have some trouble with it at Toyota. Um, but I think just keep leaning on them, keep pushing and really dig in and you're able to, that's your money at the end of the day, right? And you're able to say, no, I want to move more money into my VLA campaigns because we see those are working, right? And we saw that the video that YouTube wasn't really working. So we moved a good amount of money from YouTube to VLAs. I don't think a lot of dealers from my work at Shift understand that they can do that they
Yeah.
can call up, you know, like we use Synergize, like I can call up Synergize and say, hey, I want to move money. I think a lot of dealers think it's a TDA program. It's sort of like set it and forget it. Here's my money. You guys do with it what you want. So
Yeah. So basically, first take control, and second, question when they tell you, oh, it's illegal, or oh, Toyota or BMW are not going to go for it. They're not going to be happy or anything like that, because there's the marketing covenant with your manufacturer, right?
Right.
That's your commitment. There's the legality. Obviously, we want to stay legal. So if you have like a attorney on retainer, you might want to consult. But beyond that, your provider, your vendor is not your legal consultant. And whenever it says, you should not do that, just question it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take it at face value. It doesn't mean things are going to change, but instead of just kind of giving up, and we're sort of pushing back on that CDP list, the custom audience lists right now. So we're trying to get that moved through, but I just don't want to just say, okay, fine, like we're going to give up on it because it is important and it does present a competitive advantage for us.
Yeah.
So, don't be afraid to sort of push back if you feel if your legal team is saying no, you can do that, then say like, hey, listen, this is why I pay these people.
Yeah.
They're saying we can do it, let's do it. So,
Okay.
yeah,
All right. So we started with structure your communication with your vendor, control and challenge if there's any resistance. And then what do you actually want from them? What we said, like another point is that you must have a marketing strategy. And those meetings, you you come with certain goals that you as a dealer should have, right?
right.
Priorities, goals that
Yeah.
you communicate to them, and that's what you ask them to do, right?
Yeah.
So, like, what are your goals? Let's say, what are the examples?
So, um, on the organic side, the first thing we did is we set up 5 geos that we wanted to target. And obviously geo 1 is your backyard. And what we do is we look at what is our top 100 keywords. What are the top 100 keywords that are driving people to our website? And then we say for those top 100 keywords, what is our search visibility? And our goal for that being a Chicago dealer, so our backyard, we want to be 96% search visibility or higher, right? And then we moved to Geo 2, where we want to be above 50%. I can tell you this. We started we started Geo 2 with our new company that was back in October. We were at like 3%. And the last report I saw, we were at just over 25%. So we're going in the right direction. Now, once again, we get on the phone, we have strategy talks, and we make sure we're building pages to um, go along with our strategic goals. So we're targeting we're targeting those geos, and then you really got to dig into the numbers. And then once again, I'm sure a lot of dealers have heard this, but what is a conversion, right? So, don't a conversion's not a VDP view. A conversion's not someone clicked on a picture. We only look at conversions as hard conversions, right?
Mhm.
Um, on the paid side, we do the same thing. Um, I always want quality over quantity. I want to make sure that we're driving. Maybe we're not driving as much traffic, but it's traffic that's converting at a higher rate. Um, Store visits for the paid side, so Google's able to track people that have clicked on an ad and then come in your store. That's a tough one because just be careful if you're a dealer when you're setting up goals because it's real finicky. I don't think I don't look at that because I don't think it's accurate, but a lot of paid on the paid side, a lot of vendors will say, yeah, that's a conversion, right?
Right.
But once again, I think just establishing and with your vendors, what is a conversion, what's our goals, and then lean on them for data
Yeah.
because they have data that we don't because they work with so many dealers. And they'll tell you what's working. I don't think people ask that question a lot. Hey, what do you see from Toyota dealers that are in metros? What's working for them? You don't have to give me names, but give me, examples of like, oh, well, we're running this campaign and we've seen that it works because they're not just going to just do that, right? They're going to do kind of like the cookie cutter thing.
Yeah.
So once again, it's just a matter of making sure that, if you're the GM and you're the one that's supposed to be looking at all this stuff, you're looking at it, or whoever's supposed to be on top of it stays on top of it.
Yeah, and that kind of rolls into the next topic is how to hold them accountable.
Yeah,
Because, like, first of all, like you said, they can tell you, oh, it's converting, but their conversion is not something that's conversion to, or just not quality conversion. We don't get quality leads, we don't
right.
get good phone calls. So uh, another part of like a scheduled structured approach to it is to schedule for yourself, if you're that person that's in charge of it, to check GA4 and
Hmm.
check your Google ads once a week, like literally put it on the calendar so you can
Yeah,
log in. You have your logins, obviously. A lot of
yeah.
dealers don't even know how to log in. And then once a week, what do you look for?
Um, Yeah, and before I get into that, and the other
Yeah.
thing is just your VLAs. So your merchant center. I know we didn't talk about this,
No, go ahead.
you and I have off camera, but I get in there about twice a week, and the reason I do that is because I don't know if it's just us, but it gets glitchy for us. So we've gone through some headaches with that. So just making sure that your VLAs are set up and running correctly because I've heard horror stories where dealers are like, yeah, I didn't see anything from my VLA campaigns for like months, and it turns out they weren't actually running because they weren't set up correctly, right? So they were just missing out on all that traffic, and those are low funnel search, those are transactional searches, right?
Yeah.
So that's another source just to kind of check. Um, and then yeah, I what we do is so GA4 obviously, SEO is a marathon, not a sprint. So we really look at SEO by a quarter. GA4 really for me is to make sure there's nothing that's like on fire in terms of the website. That's why I go in there once a week. Even that to me might be a little too much, just
Mhm.
because you'll drive yourself insane. But obviously, once a quarter, we're looking at um, like what's driving traffic to our website, what's converting, and then we're looking at obviously like year over year statistics and saying like, okay, is something that we change working, or if we're not increasing our key event rate, then do we need to look at something on our website? Is it our traffic or is it our website, right? Maybe our website isn't set up correctly. So I don't want to go too deep in the weeds on that, but and that's something that once again, lean on your vendors. Hey, I see, our key event rate is our goal is, for organic traffic because that's supposed to be quality traffic. Your key event rates or hard conversion should be for us. We want to be over 3%, and let's say you're at 1. Just be like, hey, what do we need to do? Where are we off? And if they're not able to say, okay, well, let's look at your website, let's look at your Google business profile, let's look at these resources, then, there might be an issue there. So that's another way to hold your vendor accountable. On the paid side, big thing for us is just looking at um, cars that are on the ground or an F status, and what's building up and what do we need to move, and being nimble with our paid side to mimic what's going on in the dealership. So we'll move money to trucks. That's a big thing I know for a lot of people right now. It's hard to move trucks. We've put some more money into our we've lumped Tundra and Toyota into a trucks PMAX campaign
Mhm.
that's been pretty decent for us. And because of the stop sale, we're only down to 3 Tacomas on ground. So then we move money back to Camry because we saw we had like 7 Camrys on the ground. So just being nimble in that regard, and then once again, just seeing like what's working, using your data in Google Ads to see, okay, what's converting, what's not converting, and why. If it's not working, why isn't it working? Is it, you know, the is it the title tag? And we're getting the weeds, and I know you don't want to, but let's say the title tag isn't grabbing. Is it because we're landing them on the wrong page? So if you don't have a ton of background in the Digad and you don't have anyone in the store or in the group, then once again, you need to lean on your vendors and say like, hey, I see that this isn't converting well. Why is that? What do you guys think? So and the vendors need to know that it's okay if something's not working. What's not okay is if you just continue to do that and it's not working, right? Because
Yeah.
I think vendors are so afraid to admit that maybe like they did something that's not working, right?
Mhm.
I mean, they need to know that that's okay, but then it needs to be fixed. So,
Okay. Yeah,
mhm,
that's great. That's solid. So basically, like rolling back, schedule, have like a structure, communication structure with them,
mhm,
press them, right? Make
mhm.
them basically make them work for their money, right? Not don't
Yeah,
don't, don't think that, if you paying more, then it's suddenly going to give you better results. It requires a little bit of work. I don't like working a lot, so you have to structure it and make sure just put a little bit of effort of in making them work for you for their money. Bottom line,
sure.
right?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think that's perfect. And it sounds elementary in a way, but it's something I don't think a lot of dealers do. Like I said, I think we just cut a check to
Yeah,
the SEO team, we cut a check to the TDA, and we don't know what's going on. So, we just got to make sure that we are in communication, having that 1 or 2 meetings a month, depending on what, if you're organic or paid, and saying, okay, what's our goals? How are we going to measure it? How are we going to determine success as a team? Because they're really, I mean, they're part of your team. They're not in the store. Our SEO team's in Raleigh, North Carolina. We're in Chicago, but they're on our team,
yeah,
right? Because their success is our success. So we're in it together. And we go into it with that approach. And we need vendors that have the same mindset. So,
awesome.
mhm.
Anything else you want to throw in? Anything else comes up on your mind?
No, I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about, now that we've converted leads, do you want to talk about lead handling at all, or do we not want to get into that?
Well, let's touch because it kind of ties in like quality of leads, right? You
Yeah,
might be getting a lot of leads from what they do, but yeah, let's break down like the specific goals that you measure, right? Because we talked a little bit about conversion. That's the
right,
first thing, right? You got the traffic. Does it convert? What does it convert to? Because conversion can mean different things to your marketing agency, to Toyota, LeadView, whatever different systems. So
right.
that's one. But let's say it did convert into either a phone call or a lead. What do you measure then?
Yeah, so phone call, we've dug into this probably the past 4 months. We've really dug into the phones. We use a company, not that I'm plugging them, Call Review, and we had them come out and we did some phone training to kind of get the juices flowing again in terms of the phone because and I heard this stat. It was you get on average 10 phone calls, sales phone calls from your website for every sales lead. So that was eye opening for me to say, okay, our appointment set rate for the phone is trending around 46 to 48%. Minimum should be 50%. We're not doing what we need to do. We brought out a call review. We did some training that they had some good stuff. But then we dug into training. We stayed on top of it, and we were able to increase. Right now, we're running about 62 to 64% appointment set rate for the phone. Um, and that's the big thing for me. And I would see this a lot when I was at Shift is you bring in a trainer, everyone's jacked up for 2 or 3 weeks, and the numbers go like this, but no one stays on top of it from a managerial standpoint. And then 2 months go by, and you have them come back in, right? That's why you have BDC experts out there that it's the comeback they get their money on, because it's like the same thing happens, and 2 months later you're bringing in back that person for $5,000 a day to get the juices flowing again, right? Because no one stayed on top of it. So that was key, and we really were able to, like I said, increase our appointment set rate, and the show percentage off of those phone calls. We're running about 85 to 88%. So obviously, we're not just putting in garbage there and saying like, oh yeah, we set an appointment, and all of a sudden we're 65%. The show percentage for me off of those appointments for phone is 75% or more. Internet leads, we want 65% show for appointments that we made. So, when it comes to internet leads, we lean heavy those first 4 days. Um, Saw something from Drive Centric that said uh, customers who fill out leads, 77% typically buy within the first 4 days. That number drops to 11% days 5 through 9. But that's 88% of your leads that are going to buy are days 1 through 9, right?
Yep.
And then, we look at an appointment set rate. Our goal is 30%. Um, we do lean on a lead view for that, just to say like, okay, where are we at comparatively to like dealers in our district? Um, and we sort of determine like our success um that way also. If that I don't think I put that correctly, but
No,
I
it's
didn't
good.
say
It's
that
good.
correctly. But we have our basically what I'm saying is we have our own our personal goals,
Yeah.
but we also say like, okay, maybe our month was we were 25% appointment set rate, we missed our goal, and then we lean into like the district was at 14%, we're still 11% above the district, so we're still okay. We
Yeah.
need to get better, but we're not going to beat ourselves up, essentially.
Yeah, but the start with to the start has to be to actually question, right, those numbers,
Hmm.
because I know there are dealers like in lead view, everybody looks at response time and maybe close rate. And then everybody dismisses the close rate because oh, leads are not good or we don't have inventory. So
Yeah.
like really nobody pays attention. And then in lead view on Toyota side, it does give you statistics numbers for appointments set, show, and converted. I mean, closed, right?
Right.
But what we have a big problem, what I see a huge problem with a lot of dealers is that they just don't work the CRM, meaning they sell cars. Somehow the close rate is 8%, but they have like 8% appointment set rate, which makes no sense. That just
Right.
means
Right.
they like, oh yeah, come on down. I'll see you tomorrow at 11. And nobody logs it in. Nobody
Right.
confirms the appointment, right?
Yeah.
So to start the process, you have to think, what is your contact rate? If it's an internet lead, right? How many people actually respond to your phone call to text. So the contact rate first. Then after the contact rate, what's your appointment set rate, what's your appointment show rate, and then maybe close rate if you're but like for a
Yeah.
dealer like you and most dealers for Toyota that's not in a downtown San Francisco, Chicago, appointments are the key to it. Right.
Right.
That's how you get people to drive 20 miles to you. And then if you got somebody to drive to your dealership from the center of big metropolis, then your chances are much higher.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we can, and obviously I agree with you. I saw the same thing. Obviously, a lot of it what was when there was no BDC. That's when you get, because we have that right now at BMW. We're going through this kind of limbo um, BDC thing where they don't have anyone. The floor is responding to leads. The floor is taking the phone ups, and the appointment set rate is like 5%.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I would see that when I was a doc, and I'm like, guys, you sell a lot of cars, you know, your appointment set rate isn't 2%. It's just that no one's putting in the appointments. And um and I never understood that with dealers. They kind of brushed that off, and it wasn't like a big thing for them. And I was like, well, we need to make decisions off of data, right?
Yeah.
It can't be just I feel this way, right? It has to
Hmm.
be, facts, not feelings. And so, and you can't make a data-based decision if you have incomplete data.
Yeah.
So it's just so key to be to be tracking everything. Now the BDC gets paid off those appointments, so we don't really with our BDC here at Toyota we don't have that problem.
Hmm.
But I know it is an issue at our BMW store, and but
Yeah.
it drives me up the wall. So
Yeah, and I know from my experience, just like from managing a floor or whatever, that it's fixable. And the easy
right.
fix is, first of all, in the morning, every morning, you look at the CRM and then you ask the salesperson, do you have any appointments? And
Hmm.
then you see if it matches. And if you do this every day, they're gonna get the message. You want to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit of spiff. First appointment shown for Saturday, that just kind of like trains them a little bit.
Yeah.
And another thing that I found useful for Toyota dealers, like in lead view, you can get the report that will show how many leads a salesperson got, how
Right.
many how many activities per lead they do, KPI, and
Yeah.
then how many appointments. And then all you do is you get that report for the whole team, you print it, or you email it to them, or you just print it and put it on the wall so they can see, and just expose them to the fact that that they got 100 leads and they made zero appointments. So
Yeah.
something's off, right?
Well, I'm going to say that I completely agree with you. It's like like I said, it has to start at the top. If the managers aren't policing it, it doesn't matter. No one's just going to change. Obviously, the way when I had more of a hybrid situation before I got onto the vendor side, my first in the dealership, obviously it was like, well, if you don't put your appointments in and you got, you know, 20 website leads that month and you said zero appointments, well, like you're not getting any more website lead. You know what I mean? Like I can't be burning what should be my best leads.
Hmm.
So like, oh, and then you get oh no. Though I had like 8 people that came in or whatever. It's like, well, it was not this year. It didn't happen. So
Yep.
I don't know. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So I think if there is consequences, and then all of a sudden they're not getting the Glengarry leads, and that equates to I'm losing money. Things just happen to change really quick. So, um, that always was a big driver for us is just making sure that you're meeting with if you do have the floor um responding to leads and that is an issue, just making sure you're going over numbers and be like, hey, if this doesn't change, there's gonna be some things that we need to change on our
Consequences.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Mhm.
Cool. Anything else, Joe?
No, just you know reach out if you need anything. I'm always available. I know you're there, I'm here. If anyone has any questions, reach out.
That is correct. You are there and I'm here, and that we're gonna end that. That's wisdom there, right there. All right. Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, no problem.